Reuters. Theresa May and Donald Tusk embraced each other warmly at Downing Street this afternoon. The European Commission President Mr Tusk has been pictured engaging in a friendly kiss with the Prime Minister, who has claimed the EU's plans to effectively keep Northern Ireland in the customs union threaten the constitutional integrity of the UK, Mr Tusk said in a speech in Brussels this morning. One of the possible negative consequences of this kind of Brexit is a hard border on the island of Ireland. The EU wants to prevent this scenario and, if no other solution is found, the proposal is to establish a common regulatory area comprising the Union and the UK in respect of Northern Ireland, and, until now, no one has come up with anything wiser than that. In a few hours I will be asking in London whether the UK government has a better idea that would be as effective in preventing a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. He added that he was absolutely sure that all the essential elements of the draft would be accepted by the 27 remaining EU members. Ahead of his talks with Mrs May, Mr Tusk said the UK government's decision to rule out membership of the single market and customs union had been acknowledged without enthusiasm and without satisfaction. The Prime Minister has said she wants a deal which will allow trade to be as frictionless as possible, but Mr Tusk said this morning that the UK's red lines will inevitably cause friction in trade between the UK and EU. AFP, Getty Images. Theresa May and Donald Tusk will have a working lunch together this afternoon. Donald Tusk and Theresa May have been pictured laughing amid a fallout over the border issue. Hay said, "There can be no frictionless trade outside of the customs union and the single market. Friction is an inevitable side effect of Brexit by nature." The Prime Minister is expected to set out the UK government's negotiating position for the UK-EU trading relationship in a major speech tomorrow. Mrs May called a cabinet meeting before her meeting with Mr Tusk to discuss the end state withdrawal deal Britain wants to hammer out with Brussels. Ministers were given 30 minutes to read the latest draft of Mrs May's speech before a 2-hour discussion. Sky News. Theresa May have been spoken before the press at Downing Street Thursday, April 6, 2017. European Council President Donald Tusk gestures to members of the media as he leaves 10 Downing Street after talks with British Prime Minister Theresa May in central London. They were given the speech in paper form and required to leave the texts behind when they left. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said, "Cabinet ministers held a detailed and positive discussion and agreed that the speech would represent a real step forward in negotiations." The spokesman declined to comment on whether any ministers had suggested amendments to any elements of the speech, but said work continues on finalising the text. Mrs May told the special cabinet meeting that her aim was to secure an ambitious economic partnership with the EU, which is in the interests of both the UK and European Union. Responding to Mr Tusk's comments about the impossibility of frictionless trade outside the single market, the PM's spokesman said, "Given the size of the UK as a marketplace for the EU, it is in the interests of both sides to reach an agreement."